Okay. Not seeing too many people that are wholly unfamiliar with it, but we will for sure cater to that a little bit. Seems to be most people have some middling understanding for it. Yeah. That's the other thing Andy said, use categories a lot. Yeah. So, okay, this is a good start. Thank you. Thank you, everybody. That's really helps me, I think, in regards to people's familiarity. So it ranges. So keywords, okay, um, are a proprietary way. And by what I mean proprietary, I mean that ACDC has created a tool, a keywording tool that it enables you to catalog your images. So and functionally look up your images, and these keywords are stored on a database, right? ACDC's database. These keywords don't translate to the outside world. So not unless you go through a process of adding them to an actual like metadata column, like an IPTC column. We'll talk about that a little bit, but basically the takeaway here is that keywords are a user controlled, user created tool for categorizing images. There's no best workflow for it. It really ranges, and it gives you a lot of control over basically finding, identifying images predicated on qualities that you're adding to your images. So keywords become a really powerful tool of management. And so when we talk about ACDC as a manager, we're talking about these keywords being added to your images that ACDC manages and handles, and being able to navigate and find those images. So when I say that they're proprietary, I just mean that if you were to send a photo to a friend, they wouldn't necessarily be able to see, in quotation marks, those those keywords unless they also had access to something like ACDC and you had gone through the process of embedding those keywords. Sharon asked, will you talk about whether to rely on AI or keywords? So what Sharon's alluding to, let me hide this too here. What Sharon's alluding to is that ACDC has added an AI function that adds keywords, or rather, it doesn't add them, but it gives you the ability to catalog based on its recommendations. We will touch on that. I wouldn't rely on them entirely, as Sharon has pointed out, but we will talk about how to ways to integrate them and sort of understand how they benefit you, the user. Okay, and Greg, if I have time, I'll answer your question at the very end. So why don't we get started with let's maybe look at the database as a starting platform for this. So information created in ACDC is proprietary to ACDC, and keywords are one of these proprietary things. So we store this information in the database, and this is stuff that you can basically recall or use ACDC to find in your when you're navigating through to your files. Let me just showcase what that means. I'm just going to bring up the help contents. I just navigated to help contents from top here. And what I'm going to do is I'm just going to, let's see if I can find it here. Let's go to the database and just sort of understand this. So this is the ACDC help window. And if I just search database within this, it's going to bring me to a listing here. So this is sort of a really good place to start with understanding how ACDC manages its keywords. So it's a database is essentially an in-house storage system, and it contains the following information. So notably, a thumbnail previews. So when you're what we call it as browsing, when you're browsing your folders in manage mode, right? What you're doing is you're actually adding these images as thumbnails to your database. This is relevant for the first time you've ever opened up a folder. I think you'll probably recognize that actually, as you open up a folder for the first time, you can see your ACDC thinking in real time and adding these thumbnails to your images. It takes very little time. It's like a quick process. But once those images have been browsed, thumbnails are created and then placed into the database. So it contains other information as well. So categories outside of the scope of what we're talking about today, notes also outside of the scope, color labels outside of the scope, authors, dates, ratings, captions, face data. But most importantly, what we're talking about today is keywords. So all of these things, okay, are what we call as ACDSee metadata. So categories, notes, keywords, color labels, authors, dates, ratings, captions, and face data are all ACDSee metadata. And this ACDSee metadata is stored in our database. Metadata is a more broad term. And what I can do to illustrate this is I'll just see if I have any images that have some metadata on them. But there's external metadata. So this is my terminology for this, but metadata that's been added to an image either by the camera itself upon taking the photo, or it's been added by some author and it's information about the file. And so certain files, especially ones that you take with your camera or ones that you get off of the internet, they might have a metadata added to them. That metadata is illustrated let's see here, in manage mode. I'm just navigating to some files here. And under the properties window, which is on the right here, there should be a section down at the bottom to the left of organize that states metadata. And hopefully, if I'm correct about these images, I'm not. Okay, let me see. Oh no, there's a little bit of metadata. So this image has some metadata associated with it. For example, it depicts shutter speed, f-stop. It was taken on a camera. A phone, a Samsung phone, and it has all this other latitude information in regards to it. Same for this image, same sort of thing. So this information is called EXIF data, and it's largely about the sort of make and model and sort of situational qualities of the actual photograph being taken in that moment. Other metadata you find, although this is blank at the current time, is IPTC. And IPTC contains information that's been added by a user onto the file. Things like title, headline, description, keywords. We'll get to this. It's a bit deceiving at this point because this is not where the ACDSee keywords will end up immediately, but we can certainly add them there. And other information like contact, copyright image, intellectual property rights, that sort of thing. So this is information about sort of like the authorship, a description of the image, blah, blah, blah. So underneath of this in the ACDSee metadata panel here underneath this in the properties panel here is also our actual own metadata, right? So ACDSee metadata, things like caption, database date, import date, author, notes, keywords, and label. And so for the things like caption, author, notes, these are just manual entry into these fields themselves from this window, whereas keywords, label, database date, and import date are predicated on, in this case, when this file is added to or browsed in the system. And then keywords are what we're going to be showing you today. And then labels are another form of metadata that it's sort of adding like a color quality to these labels. For example, if I add a label in this property window here, the label of red, you can see that label is then filled. So why am I telling you all this? So I'm telling you this because I'm trying to illustrate that what is contained within the database, in this case, this information about the files, this proprietary information, this quote unquote ACDSee metadata, is functionally distinct from the metadata that the world knows and sees, right? The EXIF and IPTC. This metadata is traditional for images, and it's something that's actually visible in Windows when you go to the properties pane, when you right click on an image. So this kind of information will be present to you. And actually, why don't we showcase that just for fun? Let me showcase that right now. I'll just take an image of a bird here. Oh no, let's find an image that has some actual metadata on it. Ooh, my computer is running a bit slow right now. Let's find a HDR image. Here we go. Take one of these. Yes. Okay. So I have these images here, and if I'm correct, I think they should have some metadata. So I have my image here. Oh yeah, it definitely does. Go to properties panel, and under the details window here, you can see this information is actually listed here. So when I say that this window, this details window matches up with the IPTC and EXIF, that will be the case. You can see like dimensions of the file, f-stop, ISO, that sort of thing. So this corresponds with what we'd be seeing in the EXIF window. And if this file had any IPTC information listed, it would also fall suit and be found in that window. Okay, so now we know a couple things. We know what is actually happening when we're adding a keyword. We know we're adding something to the database, right? We know that the ACDSee metadata is different, right, than just regular old metadata. So the visibility of that is going to be subject to a couple things, right? It's going to be subject to whether or not I have ACDSee loaded. It's going to be subject to whether or not I've embedded that information, which we'll get to. And then it'll also be subject to whether or not, if I'm sending this image to a friend, right, who also has ACDSee, then provided that that information has been embedded within the file, the keywords are embedded within that file, then they'll have access to those keywords too. Okay, so let's take a step back now and talk about cataloging. So ACDSee has an interesting way of sort of presenting information to you. And so really broadly speaking, ACDSee works like this. In the center window here, we have a window that's dedicated to a preview of whatever you're cataloging, right? So when I say cataloging, I just mean I'm bringing up a series of images based on qualities. What I've typically shown you is navigating to file of folders, and that's a form of cataloging. It's a way to showcase images, but it's not the only way to showcase images. It's not the only way to bring up images. What ACDSee offers you, okay, is when you add metadata to a file, it gives you the ability to then look up that metadata. That metadata is distinct and autonomous from the folder that that file lives in. So what I mean by that is when I go to search for bird as a keyword that I'm adding to these images here, I will be able to bring up those files, but they're not going to be moved from their folder location. Rather, we're just going to be searching for them over our entire hard drive based on the information that we've added. This will become more clear in a moment. But my point is that folders or searching with folders is only one way to catalog your images. Another way to do that is to catalog based on properties that we've added, ACDSee metadata that we've added. So let's illustrate this. Firstly, we already talked about labels. So this is a fast one to just illustrate. So if I look up the label of red, there you are. There's all my images that I've labeled with red. But if I go to the keywords window here, okay, and I look up something like, let's look up clothing, right? It's going to bring up all of the images on my hard drive that I've added a keyword of clothing to. Let's visualize this. So here's all of these different files in my basically my hard drive, right? That ACDSee, or I've gone in and I've added an ACDSee keyword to. Excuse me. So if I click on one of these images that I know has a keyword of clothing because I've clicked on the keyword catalog label here, the same way that if I was to look at buildings, there'd be a different keyword associated with it, or architecture, for example. But I have clothing here. If I go to organize on the right, on the properties panel, okay, just right here. And if I go to the keyword section, you can see that when I scroll down, I can see that clothing has been checked. So this indicates to me that a couple things. It indicates to me that this image has a distinct keyword associated with it that is then referenceable when we click on the keyword on the left-hand panel here. And we can go about the process of adding our information on the right-hand panel here. So adding certain keywords to this. So to understand the UI, just to take a step back from what we're seeing right here. So the center window here, this center window right here, this is where we pull up or visualize the things that we're cataloging for. On the left-hand window here, just this window right here. Actually, might as well just close this. I don't use this as much. This window here, this is where we search for our files predicated on the keywords that we've added or the labels or ratings or whatever ACDSee metadata that we've added. And on the right in the properties window is where we actually add information. And we saw this when it came to metadata, right? We can add captions, notes, authors, that sort of thing. We can go in and we can fill in the IPTC columns, right? But importantly, this is where we go through the process of adding ACDSee metadata like keywords, categories, labels, ratings, etc. So that brings us to actually adding keywords. Is everybody with me so far? I'm gonna see if there's any questions so far. And just a reminder, just add questions in the Q&A panel if you don't mind. Chuck asked, is it possible to modify the hierarchy of AR keywords to make them have the same hierarchy I want to use? Maybe. We'll talk about that. I moved from Picasa to ACDSee years ago, so I had keywords, etc., stored in many areas. I converted all the EXIF and IPTC of interest to me into ACD metadata for and ease of use searching, but it took quite a while and it was well worth the time invested. Oh, that's just general comment. That's awesome, Gary. I'm glad that you had that experience too, that it was like easy to use. I think the thing is when people start using ACDSee to begin with, the user interface can be a bit dominating, but it's actually quite simple. So I'm glad you had that experience. She asked, is there a way to determine which different focal lengths use with this process? Oh, like searching for an image based on let me think. There definitely is. Let's see. It might not be with this catalog window though. It might be with filter, group, sort. I will see if I can answer that at the very end. That might be taking me a little bit longer to check for than just a moment here. So I'll try to answer that at the end. Dogcast, I'm not seeing what you are seeing in the properties window. So properties window, right-hand pane here, keep in mind that there are 3 tabs on the bottom of the properties window. They're kind of hidden, but they're actually quite important. So file information, organize window, right? And then the metadata panel right here. So these, the metadata and organize are what we're primarily going to be using here. Autonomous says, do keywords transfer through 365? 365 is like ACDSee 365 is just a cloud storage. So provided that they are embedded within the files, yes. So let's take a step at actually talking about keywords and AI keywords. So we know that, so we know that there's a database that stores these keywords in it. That's important. We know the difference between metadata and ACDSee metadata. And we now know that cataloging, right, searching for files based on some quality, in this case, keywords, is really powerful. It's really strong as a really strong element of our images here. I'm going to navigate back to my birds folder here because that's the one we're going to be working on. And let's maybe look at AI keywords first, okay? So AI keywords has been recently added to ACDSee, okay? And what AI keywords offers is a sort of passive and automated function where ACDSee fills out this information. So fills out or basically looks at your photos and describes based on a limited number, limited being key here, a limited number of keywords. It adds those keywords and then makes them now referenceable, okay, or catalogable based on that. So what we can see here is we can see a whole list of keywords when I highlight every single image in my my folder here. You can see that I have a master keyword here of animal. Underneath that keyword, I have a sub keyword of bird. And then within bird, I have a sub keyword of eagle. Same is the case for architecture. For some reason, ACDC picked up on architecture here. It picked up on infrastructure, and it picked up on fence, right? So lots of keywords have been added here that are added when we browse through a folder. So the same when we browse in a folder and ACDC fills up some information, like the thumbnails, for example, it's also filling in this information of the AI keywords. These AI keywords are not treated as your custom keywords that you create. They're treated as separate, and there's a couple reasons for this. There's ways to add these keywords into the main keyword panel, but these, for the most part, are just treated as, hey, ACDC can isolate and identify a couple items in your image, and we're going to treat these now as searchable. Okay, so it just makes searching easier. So, how would we visualize that? So we're in my pictures folder right now, right, on my hard drive. Let's go to the catalog panel and just have a quick look at AI keywords. Like I said, when we go through the process of navigating, okay, in our folder for like anything, in this case, an AI keyword, right? They're going to come up as I click on them. So these again are sort of like added when we browse to our files automatically without any user input. So when I look up architecture, a bunch of these images pop up that correspond to that AI keyword. Hopefully everybody can see that. So when I look up animal, right, all of my animal images pop up, including some ones that are not necessarily what I want. Like for example, a crab as a plate of food, but isn't necessarily what we want when we're looking for that image. So AI has isolated that that's an animal, but it doesn't understand the context of it. Same for bird. So when I look up bird, all of these images pop up, but I'm also getting a bunch of landscape images that don't necessarily isolate that bird, in a good in a really in a way that the human would in this case. There's also some failures. This image just straight up doesn't have a bird in it at all, unless I accidentally have added that keyword. But I have a lot of images here that are correctly identified by AI keywords, right? So AI keywords is presenting to us an automated function, right? It's showcasing those keywords that have been added by the system upon browsing. Let's take a step back because I'm seeing some questions pop up. Barbara asked, is there a way to make the right panel font larger? The print is too tiny for me. That would be a systems thing, Barbara. It's not possible in the software itself, but it's possible through Windows. I would just look that up. There is a way to increase the size of your user interface, but it's just not something that ACDC does in this case. It'd have to be something through, and the reason for that is that's actually a really complicated and not easy thing to do within ACDC, just because of you have to accommodate for different languages, and you have to accommodate for a size of a text and names and things like that. So, but if you look up the Windows way to do that, you can, there'll be an answer for you. Anonymous asks, can ACDC pull metadata off of pictures if it is embedded within a photo? Yes, it can. So this maybe I'll try to get to a little later in the workshop, just so I can stay on. But yes, there is a way to do that. I'm going to leave this posted until I can properly answer it. Okay, Irina asked, I moved my photos from one drive to another and all metadata was lost. Yes, correct. I'm beginners, don't know where to control over metadata. Okay, so this is a database question, and I'll be able to answer this in more depth when I go to do my database workshop, but it is relevant. When you go through the process of adding keywords to an image, you have to embed them. Embedding keywords does more than adding them, right? Them puts them on your hard drive. Puts them within the file, basically. So the way that you want to do this or deal with this is because when ACDSee starts new, it's treated as a new thing, right? So you either want to do one of two things. You want to have imported a previous database that's going to contain all your information, okay? And it'll then therefore have all those keywords and categories and et cetera, et cetera. Or you want to have embedded the metadata within your file so that you can reconstruct your new database with keywords and labels and such that you've added previously. If I have time, I'll talk about that in a little bit more depth at the end. But the answer to your question is importing an old database or embedding and cataloging your files predicated on your previous embedded metadata. Okay. Yeah, and I'll talk more about embedding at the end when I have a moment, but I'm still trying to get through some of the more broad concepts when it comes to AI. I'm going to navigate back to this folder with the birds, and we're going to actually go through the process of using AI keywords in conjunction with regular keywords. So AI keywords are treated as automated and separate from regular keywords until we go through the process of adding that adding that keyword rather. If I click on all my images here, you can see that these are all the AI keywords that pop up. But you'll notice that none of these plain keywords, or rather our sort of manual keywords, have a check mark next to them, that little blue check mark that we saw earlier when we looked up the clothing, right? And that blue check mark indicates to us that they are now something that we can catalog using our own keywords rather than AI keywords. So these AI keyword lists here, this is going to be the list that ACDSee produces for us. Whenever we browse, these are just sort of a standard keyword list that ACDSee produces. But this keyword list, the master keyword list right here, these are all ones that I've added personally. These are keywords that I have a relationship with, and I can go through the process of cataloging images based on these. So when I looked up clothing earlier, right, these are all files that I had personally made the decision to add clothing to, right? So these are different. And so keywords and AI keywords are different, are catalogable, cataloged differently. When I go to search for, clothing in this panel, right, it's going to be different necessarily than looking for clothing in this panel, unless I predicated my keywords, or rather my list of keywords, on certain AI keywords. So that's a long-winded way that I'll do a better job of showcasing this, but there's a long-winded way of saying that there's ways to link these two things together. What I'm going to do is I'm actually going to make some keywords here. But the first thing I want to do is I just want to actually utilize some pre-existing AI keywords that the system's already made for me. And that's these master keywords of animal and bird. All of these images are animals. All of these images are birds. So why don't we just go ahead and add this keyword, or these AI keywords. So I'm going to go in and I'm going to click on animal and I'm going to click on bird, and note that they're hierarchical because animal is listed above bird here. Okay. When I go over to look at my keywords window now, hey, what do you know? They are actually checked, which means that they are now something that I can catalog normally, not just using AI keywords. So all of these images have animal and bird associated with them, okay, which is very good. That's what we want. Now we have a hierarchy started that we can add to. For example, we have all of these images are, animals. Like I said, all of these images are birds, but they're different types of birds, right? So we can go through the process of adding that now. Okay, so we have our images here. Let's go back to the catalog panel and just quickly showcase that. So if I was to go to the master keywords catalog window, I can look up something different like clothing for a moment now. And if I look up bird, you can see that that list is produced and these images are on the list. So these are now a part of my own keyword list. Okay, let's go back to looking at these. So I've used sort of AI to start the process of constructing my own list of keywords here. How do I go about actually truly adding a whole new list? Well, in this window here, the keywords window on the right, what we can do is we can go through and we can add new keyword sets. And we can add these underneath existing sets. So what I can do here is I can add just a whole bunch of new keywords. Okay. I could add like toucan if I wanted to. I could add heron. That's what I have in this image here. And I could add, let's see here. What do I have? Eagles. And this would give me the ability to then essentially stamp or add these keywords to my files. Let's showcase that really quickly here. So I have 3 listed here. I'll just save this as, I don't know, birds test. And I'll hit OK. And you can see that when I look at this listing here, when I have my images highlighted here, I can go through the process and I can actually add toucan to my keyword list here. Or actually, I could add eagle here, right? The problem, though, is this isn't going to place it within the keyword set that I've already created. If I just click eagle here, I've got eagle added, okay? And now eagle is something I can reference, but frustratingly, eagle is not within my bird category. You can see that there. So how do I go about creating a subcategory of, in this case, eagle within my bird keyword there? Once again, the way to do this is I would just go to new quick keyword sets, and I just have to create a bit of I have to basically do like a little tiny line of code here. Code is probably too much of a word for this, but all I would add is the word animal, and then I would add a vertical dash, and I would add bird, and another vertical dash, and then I would add something like eagle. And then that way, what it's going to do is it's going to add eagle underneath bird and animal. And let's copy this, oops, same line again. And we'll add another one where I go, because I have a couple different eagles here. I've got I have we have a golden eagle here in addition to a bald eagle. So I could go golden, right? Or gold eagle. And that way, what I have here is I have now 2 different keywords that I can add that are going to exist with underneath animal and bird as a keyword list. Let's go and do the same thing for the 2 other categories we have here, which is animal, bird, heron. And then I have, what do I have? Blue and white herons here. So let's go in and we'll add blue. And then I can do the same here. So I have toucans, and then I have a different type of toucan, which is called a aracari. So I can add my major list here, which is toucan. And then I can go through, and I can copy this, and I can add toucan aracari. Alan asked, are rows and columns important? How? Not particularly. What this does is you can add more. So if you had a really expansive list, Alan, of say like a whole set that you're adding to your images, and it happened to have lots of sub keywords within it, this might be really useful to you because you would go in and you'd add like way more rows. So you just want to have way more access to more keywords in the quick set here. And what this does is it literally adds more space here. Okay. So a good example of this is, I mean, in the cases of animals, right? If I'm really comprehensive about my listings, yeah, you might have tons and tons of keywords that are sort of that you can go through and you can add based on different types of animals. So this series that I'm making right now is just birds, but maybe you want to do one for a completely different set of animals like mammals and other for insects or whatever have you, right? So it really just gives you the ability to add more. That's kind of all it is to it. It's not. It just gives you the ability to sort of add more and more keywords to your listing that are then going to be referenceable here. Does that answer your question, Alan? Let me know. Okay, cool. So I'm just going to reference this to what I see above me here. So I'm in my little bird um, uh, catalog window here. And what I've done is I've added that actual keyword based on an AI suggestion. So AI suggested, hey, Adam, I have a bunch of animals in these images here, and they're also birds. You can use me right now as an AI keyword, but do you want to actually add me as a master keyword? And I said, yeah, I'd like to add that in as a master keyword. And now I have all these different animals and I have all this, basically I have this listing here, this keyword listing, then I can then reference and use here. So what I'm doing is I'm going, okay, this is a really good keyword to start with. Now, how do I actually make more specificity to this? So, well, in order to make more specificity to this, I need to actually engage with it manually, right? And so all I'm doing is I'm saying, okay, I'm going to add eagle in this existing keyword. And then I'm going to add gold eagle within as a sub sort of keyword within eagle. And then I did the same thing for heron. I said, okay, I've got animal, bird, I've got herons, but I've also got two types of herons here. I've got a blue, and I guess we'll just treat the white one as a regular heron. And then I have a toucan in here, and then I also have araucaries, which are a different type of toucan. So I have all these different sets here that I've kind of created. And then I've created the relationship of sub keywords within those. So let's save this. I'm going to call this birds and hit OK. Yeah. So right here, Freddie, it says for sub keywords use ABC. And so the line here is the most important part. It's that vertical dash. So as you can see, I've done that same structure for this. So I have animal, and then it's kind of hard to see here, but highlighted right there is a vertical dash. And then I have bird, which is the next, the sub keyword within animal, and then another vertical dash. And then I have the word eagle added after that. So eagle is going to be underneath bird and animal. Whereas heron is going to be a whole different sub keyword within bird. This will all become clear in a moment when I actually go through adding these, but hopefully you can see that I've actually used this structure when creating my quick keyword list here. Does that sort of make sense so far? Yeah, if it does, let me know. I'm going to go through the process of saving this quick keyword list. Yeah, it's very, I wish I could zoom in on this. It's very small. I'm going to go in and I'm going to add birds. Let's save it. Actually, let's add, I think I already have birds. So let's call just birds 2. Okay. And then you can see that that popped up under my keyword panel here. So now I can go through and I can navigate to different birds within this quick keyword set that I've created. Earlier, Doug asked if I add more rows, what appears? Well, this clothing keywords here, they have 3 rows rather than the 2 rows of completed keywords that I've created here. So let's select all my eagles. So these are my eagles right here. I'm going to go in and hit eagle. And hopefully what you can see there is when I did that, it added eagle underneath the bird keyword here. Let's keep that open. I'm going to click on these 3 golden eagles here, and I'm just going to click on gold and watch these pop out underneath the eagle category. There you go. So they're gold. They're listed right here. I can go through and I can add our herons here. So I'll click all of our white herons, and I can click on the heron button here. And that adds heron underneath the bird, right? There it is. And then I can click on all my blue herons, and add blue. And there you go. They're added right there. Now you might notice that when I clicked on my top level eagles here, these eagles are checked and these gold eagles are not checked. If I wanted to incorporate all of them, if I wanted them all to be treated as eagles, or in this case, all I would do is click on these last three gold eagles, and I would just then therefore click on the eagle listing above it. So now when I search for gold, right? Gold will pop up with those three eagles, but the master listing of eagle will pop up with everything, including the bald eagles here. So, okay, what happens if I want to add a listing for bald eagle? Well, we can edit a keyword set. Okay. So now I can add another listing and I could say, okay, I've got gold eagles. I've got this general category of eagle. And now I want to add bald eagle here as well. So add bald to the list and I'll just add another vertical dash after eagle and I'll save the listing. So when I go through and I click on my first listing of bald eagles, right? I can go through and I can click on this button right here. And now they're flagged as bald eagles, which is distinct from gold eagles. So let's go through this. Here's all my animals. Here's all my birds. Here's all my eagles. Here's my listing of bald eagles. And here's my listing of gold eagles. Does everybody see that? Do I understand what's going on when I'm looking at this keyword listing here? I'll go through it again when it comes to heron and blue, but it's like super strong. And so what I've done here is I've started a keyword list. The vertical line is located underneath, just above the enter key, two above the shift key, and one beneath the backspace key. You have to hold shift in order to make a vertical line on Windows. So this is super powerful. So what I've done here is I've went through the process of adding a AI keyword that I liked that the system had already created for me. I said, okay, I'm going to legitimize that. Okay. I'm going to legitimize that by clicking on and adding the plus button here. This adds it to my keyword listing. So now not only is animal searchable, right, through the AI keyword, but it's also searchable now through my actual personal keyword listing. So I've taken a suggestion based on AI functions and I've made it an actual keyword. Then within that, I've added eagles, right? I've added the whole keyword of eagle. I went in and I added gold eagles, okay? And I went back and I was like, okay, well, now that I have gold eagles, I actually want more specificity to this. I also want to add bald eagles. So if I just look up eagles on their own, they come up, they pop up, boom, there's my listing, all of my eagles. If I want my specificity, I go to bald or gold. So let's go back to our bird listing and we'll just repeat these steps once again for herons. So I have this listing of herons here that I know are white herons. Let's go back to our keyword list. So herons are listed. So they are animals, they're birds, they're herons, there they are. Then I have my blue herons, which are animals, which are birds. Technically, they're herons, right? And they're also blue. So if I wanted to make sure that they came up in the heron listing, I'd click there. The other thing I can do is I can go through and I can, once again, click on the birds listing, edit quick keywords, and I can add another heron type, which is white heron, right? So I have my quick keywords list here. I have my master category of heron underneath bird and animal. I have blue herons underneath herons, and I can also add now white herons to further specify. Click OK, save, boom. Click on all my white herons and just make sure to add, where to go? Why didn't it pop up? Why didn't it pop up? Let's figure this out. Oh, it didn't pop up because I haven't added it yet. Okay, that's why. So I'm going to click on all my images of my white herons here. And then I could just go through and I could add the white label to these images. And there it is. So now I have herons that are searchable as well. There's all my white herons. John asked, he did not have to actually move any images from one folder to another, did not have to create multiple versions of any images. So like what John's pointing out here is that when we go through, I'll close that, go through and add keywords, what I'm not doing, and this is sort of fundamental to understanding ACDSee's cataloging system, is I'm not copying these files. I'm not doing anything with these files. I'm simply navigating to these files based on information, proprietary metadata, ACDSee metadata that I've added to these files. So it knows where to search for these files. I started this process of cataloging my files by interacting with the folder, right? That's how I started this process. I navigated this folder, but now I don't even need this folder anymore because I have all these different keywords that I've added to these files. They're not being moved. And in fact, this can be referenced if I go to my file listing here, right? I know they're not moved, even though I'm engaging with these files within this catalog listing. I know that they're not. They're listed in my users tab. They're listed under admin. They're in my pictures folder, and then they're in my birds folder. They're right there. You know, it's just me navigating or bringing them up predicated on keywords that I've added. Scott, okay, so a few years ago, I did some sporting event job. Then I added those shots into ACDSee and keyworded all the shots with captions, etc. I sent all the shots to the client. He replied he was not able to see all the metadata. What did I do wrong here with not being able to send the data to a client? Okay, this is a great point. Let's move on to this question because this is a very good question. I'm just going to finish just going to finish adding keywords rather to the last, the toucans in my image here. I'll do that and then I will directly answer your question. So I can take on listing, click on all my images, all my toucans here. I'll just go in and let's add toucan to these and we'll add Arikari to these. And now all of my images are properly keyworded. Okay, so ACDSee metadata, and I said this at the beginning of the workshop, and I'll say it again, is proprietary. Proprietary means that it's not going to be to you, that means to the user, it is not going to be visible to others unless they have ACDSee. Okay, so if you're sending photos to a user and you're like, oh, I'm adding all these keywords, la la la, perfect, they're perfectly keyworded. If they don't have ACDSee, right, and these files aren't, if these aren't embedded within the file, that's not going to be something that they can see. In order for a user who doesn't have ACDSee to be able to see those keywords would have to be moved to a standard metadata set that they can visualize. And that's not ACDSee metadata. That has to be like IPTC, right? It has to be something that's visible in Windows, right? The beautiful ACDSee metadata that you added was primarily for your benefit. It wasn't for the benefit of your user. So I think now would be a good time to talk a little bit about embedding metadata, how that helps you, the user, and then talking about how to move metadata to an IPTC column so that your users can actually, or sorry, rather your customers or whatever can actually see metadata. So I'm going to answer both of those things, and that'll probably be where we round off the workshop today. Okay, so quickly embedding metadata and why you would do this. Again, this is not going to be for the benefit of your customers. We're getting to that. This is just going to be for the benefit of you. So, don't worry, and it'll be uploaded to YouTube. I have a bunch of new keywords, okay? New being the operative word here, added to my images here. The way that I know that I've added information to my file is I have this little, I mean, I think it's supposed to be a reel of film or camera film, but it looks like a little bucket. I have this little bucket located next to all of my files in this folder structure here. And what I need to do now is I need to embed this ACDSee metadata within this editable file. And why I would do this is for one very important reason, so that I can reconstruct a database in the future with this information. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to right click on the images that I have in my folder here under the birds catalog here. I'm going to take them, I'm going to right click on them. I'm going to go down to the metadata panel here. So metadata, and I'm going to embed this information. I mean, oh, do I have another window active? Where's my other window? Let's close this one. Try this. There we go. Okay. So when I go to right click on my files, click metadata, embed ACDSee metadata, it will give me a little pop-up window here. It says, do you want to embed ACDSee metadata and face data to your files? Okay. Face data is beyond the scope of this workshop, but if I had added face data, this is how I'd go about embedding it. ACDSee metadata that I've added, in this case, keywords, right? What was the list again? What is ACDSee metadata? Thumbnails, categories, notes, keywords, labels, authors, dates, ratings, captions, and face data. Keywords being the primary one here. I'm going to embed that. So I'm going to click on embed. It'll go through the process of adding that to it. And notably, my pending metadata icon has been removed from my files. So it tells me that whatever I've added is now saved to it. Okay, great, Adam. Why would I want to do this? If I was to have brought these files in to ACDSee, okay, and say I moved to the next product, okay, I was like, next year I buy the most latest ACDSee, and I want to go through the process of reconstructing my my keyword structure. Okay, and this is a safety measure because I want to, for some reason, there was a hard drive issue. This database that I used to have is no longer accessible. I can no longer import that database. But as long as I've been going through the process, this process of cataloging my files, embedding my metadata, I can just go simply, literally this simple. I can go to Tools, Database, Catalog Files, and if I follow this window here, it will entirely reconstruct my keyword listing based on whatever I had saved to these files, whatever I had embedded to these files. So this is a powerful way for me to reconstruct my database or parts of my database using my old files or using my old catalog information that I've added to my files through the process of embedding. Gary asked, I configured all my ACDSee for auto embed upon closing the software, ensure the data is captured on my hard drive totally. Before I close the software, I check catalog, special items, embed pending to confirm accuracy of data to be embedded. So this is what Gary's pointing to is you can turn on a reminder text in the options window that will tell you that, hey, I want to go through the process of embedding whenever I've changed anything, rather than having to do this manually. So when you go to close the software, it's just going to remind you, say, hey, Adam, did you want to embed this? And you just say yes to that, and it would be done. And Alan said, very handy to add embed metadata command to the toolbar. Totally. Okay, so we now know how to embed metadata. How do I take this metadata and move it to a IPTC column? How do I move this information here? There used to be a more complicated way to do this, but I think there's been a improvement to this window here. Right. So that's my listing. Okay, let me see here if I can keywords. I think if I right click on my files, let's see here. There used to be a quick way to do this. Metadata embed keywords.iptc. Yep. Okay. So earlier, who asked this question? Scott asked this question. Okay, Scott, this is your answer right now. You ready? So I have my images here, and I have relevant keywords that I want my 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 client to have access to. Please note that what I'm about to tell you is not going to maintain hierarchy. Okay. Hierarchy is something that only ACDSee can handle. And what I mean by hierarchy is animal, underneath animal, bird, underneath eagle, underneath bird, eagle, underneath eagle, bald, and gold. That's a hierarchy, right? What I'm about to tell you, okay, is I can move these keywords, and the keywords are animal, bird, eagle, bald, gold, heron, blue, white, toucan, right? I can move these keywords to the IPTC column, a field that my clients can see, but it's not going to maintain the hierarchy. It's going to flatten that hierarchy, which means animal is not as, it doesn't contain any more priority than bird, which means bald doesn't contain any more priority than eagle. That's just the way this is going to work. It's a limitation of IPTC. Okay. I would click on all my images, right click on them. Okay. So I've cataloged my files accordingly. I'm in my bird window here. I'm going to go, I'm going to navigate down to metadata. And under metadata, I'm going to say embed keywords to IPTC. So this is going to take my ACDSee keywords and it's going to embed them within IPTC. IPTC is a universal general column of metadata that my clients can see. So click on that. And keywords being, okay, keywords being the keywords that I've added to these images. If I wanted to embed AI keywords, that would be this window here. But these are the ones that I've added. Okay. Click on that. It's going to navigate through and then let's have a look. Okay. I'm going to navigate to metadata after clicking on an image. Metadata. Okay. And you can see under ACDSee metadata, I have animal, bald, bird, eagle. Under IPTC, I have animal, bald, bird, eagle right there. Under this toucan here, I have animal, aracari, bird, toucan. Under heron, I have white. Do you see that? That line is now filled and it's been applied, which means that if I open up my Windows folder here, let's see if I can find it. I should be able to find these birds no problem. And I can bring up the properties window. Let's see here. Yeah. So I'm going to take these files here. I'm just going to randomly select one. I'm going to go to properties, going to go to details, and boom, there it is. Tags animal, bird, heron, white. Scott, do you see that? So that is now visible to your client. Okay. Those tags are now, these tags are the keywords that we added. Okay. So that is now saved within the image. It is visible to your client. The ACDSee metadata that we've created, along with its corresponding hierarchy, of course, can't be seen by your customer because they're not viewing it in ACDSee, right? They're probably viewing on exactly this. They're probably just navigating to it in a file folder like this. But that is listed there. Those tags are added. Okay.